let's do game system discussions. That'd be my vote.
Okay.
Right.
I agree.
What about you, Falco?
I agree.
You agree? For that first point, I got a lot to say on that first point.
I like that first point as well. And the first point is actually on the replay value of dungeons for Ashes of Creation. And I'll go ahead and share that out to you guys in Twitch so you can see what we're referencing. And this comes from consultants over on the Ashes of Creation forums. And they're saying the purpose of this post is to discuss retention. I already posted on the subject, but since there was a comment about how low drop rates increases the replay value, we decided to expound more on the subject. I want to point out that retention is a real issue. Most MMO games get released and peak the player content, and after that, player population declines. Also, expansions come out, player count peaks, and then steadily goes downhill. And we've seen that with like a lot of World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy and other things that are just like older games. You get that initial hype for the new content, but it just over time doesn't sustain. In general, keeping people online with gear could be done with attainable gear, not really low drop rates. And that's this person's perspective. So let's say game comes out and they're really cool. They have like bows with a 3 to 6 month grind. I'm trying to get around some of this. But they think that Ashes will still be really busy even after the game comes out. So all you have to do is put in a couple of new bows to farm whenever content comes out. After a while, the bows just kind of add up. And you can replace bow with gear or mounts or pet cosmetics, etc. But in general, there's more there. What are your thoughts about the replay value of dungeons and the game in general?
I'll go first. I feel like as long as, like, obviously there's gonna be expansions, I feel like since I'm gonna use RuneScape as an example because that's a game I have probably the most time with, and it's a pretty successful game for how long it's been out, like 20 plus years. I feel like RuneScape does it very well with keeping dungeons having high replayability, with having really high like drop rates are not like the greatest. They're like 500 per like 1 drop per 500 kills, but then they also do it really well to keep the old dungeons that came out like in the early 2000s relevant by making it so you have to like disassemble those pieces of gear to put into the newer pieces of gear to make that, to power up that like the new gear from like the new dungeons that they came out in the late like in 2023. I feel like that makes it so that other gear doesn't like not become expensive anymore because it's still in-game gear. It just was in-game gear that came out in the early 2000s. I feel like that's a way to keep people spread out and not always doing the same dungeon, you know, because people, when the new dungeon comes out, they're just going to go to it, like, because that's the new hot thing. It's the most expensive thing to farm. It's going to have the best materials, whether it's materials to craft the best gear or whether you have the best glen or so have it. As long as they continue to make it so you're adding on to the existing stuff and not just kind of putting it to the wayside, kind of like New World does, like the newest bow comes out, takes 5 kills to get it, then wait for the next expansion, another bow. Okay, what am I gonna do with this last bow? Nothing, just leave it in my bank. As long as there's a reason to keep it or use it to add on to what you already have, then I feel like that's gonna keep a bustling economy
and a diverse choice of content you can participate in. Like still on old school, if you want to go farm those older dungeons, you can still make money because parts are still relevant.
Exactly.
I like that. I feel like the replayability of dungeons is pretty serious, even for the gameplay aspect of the game, like what you want to do on the game. Because if the max level say is 50, and say the highest dungeon, you can do it efficiently at like level 42, and that's all you want to do. You just want to be a drop hunter on the game and just farm that dungeon for money. And if leveling really is that slow on Ashes, like Steven says it is, what's the incentive to go from 42 to 50? It's a good thing, in my opinion. You don't have to be max level to play the game at the level you want to play it at. That's the thing with New World. If you want to do the new dungeon, you have to be level 65. You have to be the max level. But I kind of like it. Like on RuneScape, hardly anyone is max level. you don't have to be max level to do the content. When you see someone who's max level, you're like, oh, that's cool. They put the work in to get that last few bit of levels that they didn't need. So if the dungeons actually have a high level of replayability, and you obviously need to be a high level to them, but you don't have to be the highest level, then that's kind of where that segment of the crowd will branch off and just go farm the dungeons pretty much as soon as they can. And that gives high value to the max level that wouldn't otherwise be there, if that makes any sense. And also, in terms of replay, I'm just thinking of so many things because of New World and how bad they butchered this. They release a new dungeon like, I don't know, every 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's there for a day or two, and then it dies out pretty much instantly.
Oh, wow.
And the core systems in that game are just there. I don't want to get too much into it, but there was an Umbral Shard system where you would do the dungeon, they would give you Umbral Shards, and you could upgrade your gear with them. And then they got rid of that because everybody just farmed the dungeons and had unlimited supply of shards. And then they introduced the same system, but with a different name. And now we're back in the same situation again. So the core gameplay loops are just extremely important, and I'm interested to see how they navigate that, because RuneScape is the only game. Well, I haven't really played enough WoW to be able to speak on that part, but RuneScape, they did it right. They made the old drops. The old drops have to be valuable. They have to maintain some sort of base level. Like in RuneScape, they call it alchemy, where you can just straight convert the item into coin. That's one way to give a baseline value to items. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but as long as the content's not completely dead, as long as you still see people there, it makes the world feel a little more alive.
I agree.
Yeah. Virtek, what are your thoughts?
I think that, and this is one of I am mostly satisfied with the idea and concept of how the raids and dungeons are going to be in Ashes. And I say mostly because, I do have a couple issues, but for the most part, I think the replayability won't be a problem. Because for one, you're going to be going for droppable pieces that you can craft into gear. And there's going to be nodes that when they rise up to, like, say tier 5 or tier 6, it's going to open up a raid or a dungeon or what have you along the way. And then that node may not survive for a really long time. Let's say a node has like a 1 year lifespan before somebody nukes it. So you have a raid for a year, along with 5 other raids because of the other nodes, and who knows, maybe however many it may open up as well, just because of some of the on rails portion of the game. Like they're going to tell a story. There's going to be a story about the world that may open up other raids and dungeons and other experiences as well. So you're going to have 6 months to a year to play a raid that's going to be contested by people wanting to do the same thing because it's all open world, right? So you may not have a chance to beat it many times yourself. You're gonna have to wait until the big brutish bullies finish doing their runs through and like locking everybody else out, or the people who just have really good timing and get there magically at like 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody else is on, or what have you. But either way, like you're gonna have a little bit of time to get to it after all the other people get to it, and then you move on. But it's not like you need that gear set from there. You just need some drops, like a couple drops, to be able to craft something, and then you move on, and then there's a new raid, and then you might maybe get back to that one specific situation where that one raid opens up again in the future, maybe, possibly, Yeah. I think replayability is going to be good.
Okay.
I mean, I think so too. I mean, the servers have 10,000 people each.
Right.
Well, yeah, hopefully that's the optimistic outcome. But I think that the players are going to be the thing that keeps Ashes going, because everything is player driven anyway. So without the players, there isn't a game. And also without the players, there isn't a marketplace. And we know that the best gear is crafted, so you have to go and do the content to get the best items to craft the best gear. And it's a vicious cycle from there. And And I think that I don't know, I've not really played a game that's kind of like that. You guys had mentioned RuneScape previously. But I think that the way that this is made sounds like it will sustain itself for a time period, like a decently long time period, versus getting through all of the main content and not having anything to do that's interesting. Like, we are the content, essentially.
And the complexity of having to get that mega rare item and then having to also be a max level crafter to get that piece of gear. Like, sometimes it's good for things to be almost unobtainable in the game. No,
definitely.
Right.
There's stuff we haven't ever obtained in RuneScape, and we played it probably
for 20 years. We've never had
you've never
had a twisted bow.
Never had a twisted bow. It's like the best bow in the game. I've had stuff on the same rarity as it, but I've never gotten that bow, and it's like, it's pissed me off. But at the same time, it's like, I got something to play still.
Yeah.
There's still replayability, and also if the end game best gear in the game that you have to get an item from an end game dungeon then craft it, that, since considering that's so unobtainable, it gives value to epics or lower tier gear.
Exactly.
You know, like, because sorry to keep bringing up New World, but New World, when you see an epic, you instantly destroy it. There's not a single epic in the game even the time of day to think about. So that's something that's kind of sad.
Bring back rarity usage, like, not everyone uses a legendary. Like, make legendary, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Right. That actually brings me to the next topic, which is on Death and Ashes of Creation.
Okay.
This one's also from the forums. Let me just share that out. This is from, I have no idea how to say this person's name, so I'm just going to shorten it to Kavi. But this person thinks that dying should always have a negative effect on a character, regardless of doing PvP siege events or caravan attack. And I hard disagree. I think there should be some instances where you are not always punished for dying. But what are your thoughts? You guys have played a variety of different games.
I mean,
it shouldn't always be a punishment. There should be some instance, like, what about if you're just dueling a friend, obviously, something like that. But as a whole, I think dying should be pretty severe. Like, you should have
all the time.
Not well, all the time is so
okay. If you're doing like tournaments, or what's it called, like
tournaments,
or if you're, let's say you're doing. Because I know they're gonna have like arenas. If you're doing arenas and it's just like some that's like for rank, what your penalty is like losing your rank, not losing your gear. But if I'm walking through like the Riverlands and Tumac just rinses my stuff, like, and I couldn't get away from him, I should lose something, because I probably shouldn't have been in Tumac. I shouldn't have been there. But
you should have heard the trees falling.
Right, I should have done it a long time ago. Like, but
just to clarify, Kavi says that there should be no exceptions to.
Oh no, Kavi's crazy.
Oh, he's crazy.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. Like, even like,
he's crazy.
Further proving his point is, like, I think that there should definitely be exceptions to getting some sort of negative effect for dying.
I mean, as a general rule of thumb, I don't agree with anyone who speaks in absolutes. But to some extent, well, no, if you're fun dueling, then I guess the loss of dying is you lost.
Right.
Right. But there's, like, in terms of negative consequences for your character, there should absolutely be exceptions.
Definitely.
But there should also be very strict consequences if you do die in a situation that's not protected.
Like, death should mean something.
I don't think they should be.
Right. Death should definitely mean something.
It should be it should be a big enough penalty to where you think about what you're doing when you leave, your village or node. Like, when you start going out, and, like, because it's a big map, you should have to think about where you're going and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, no, I'd say I kind of fall in the middle because although I do have a couple gripes on how full tilt they seem to be going in like PvP more so than PvE when it comes to like combat situations and opportunities. I will at least say that I would agree with the Stephen made a statement at one point saying that PvP is going to drive change in the world, and the only way to really keep it going is to encourage it, at least to a degree. And I think that idea of not really applying experience debt to organized PvP is actually a good way to do that. It'll keep the server feeling alive, keep people out there doing things and going places and whatnot. It will also let people who are feeling timid about that type of situation to not feel so deterred away from trying to jump in and play around and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a good thing. I do like that they do have the repair costs in there, even for like caravans, though, because there's at least something there. Like, you can only keep going as long as you have money to keep going, but you're at least not going to de-level yourself or whatever and make yourself weaker by just dying because you're trying to participate in an event.
I've played games though where the repair cost is so negligible, like it's there, but is it there?
Man, I'm a tank.
Yeah.
Repair costs are never negligible for me.
That's true.
And I mean, same with like healers. I mean, typically healers wear cloth, but in this game, healers can also wear plate. So like anybody who's gonna intend on wearing plate, it's probably gonna incur a large cost. But yeah, I agree with you, Peon.
dear
as long
Bob.
as XP debt is not as bad as Alpha 1, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
They said it was highly overtuned on accident.
How bad was it in Alpha 1?
Large.
It was like 20% or something like that. It was crazy.
Horrendous.
20%.
So like, I will say that this kind of actually really supports my perspective on it. I don't think, especially when involved in PvP, I don't think there should be any XP debt.
No, I kind of agree with you actually.
I think that that is a good way to grief somebody. And I'm already a little bit frustrated by the idea that if you are green and you're getting attacked by a purple and you don't fight back, that you also not only lose stuff, but you lose XP. Like, I feel like that frustrates me as somebody who doesn't really like PvPing when it's not my choice to fight back.
Yeah.
I get that they're trying to incur incentive, but that is more like, and I've said this before, like a long time ago, that it comes off to me more of like I am being punished for not participating in something rather than them being punished for doing something that I am not engaging back in. So therefore them turning red, like they gain corruption, sure. But the point that I really like that the Dark Sorcerer brings up is again with Alpha 1, the XP debt was freaking crazy, and they said don't mind this XP debt. You know, this is not actual numbers. We're still working on tuning this. So just don't take this as like this is the way it is. But Dark Sorcerer says if you're an experienced player, this won't be an inconvenience for you. But for new players, this will be a major turnoff, where dying is very common while getting to know the game, and that's a very accurate thing. You know, like while learning how to play the game, and I always bring this up, the way that we knew how much XP debt there was is I accidentally drank poison 3 times. The first time I thought a player killed me. The second time I didn't realize it was poison. The third time I was like, oh, I am killing myself with poison.
Okay,
Got it.
they're already telling you deserve an XP.
Wait, you could drink poison?
There was like a quest at the beginning. I think it was for rogues, but it looks like a wine bottle. So I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna drink it. I didn't read. I didn't read the text.
Yeah.
So reading matters. Reading matters.
Reading matters.
I was just like, do, and I just thought somebody killed me. But it was to the point we tried grinding it off. It was faster for me to go make a new character. I got back to level 5 and beyond in a shorter amount of time than it took for me to even try to get rid of the XP debt.
Well, that's okay. That's pretty silly. But
Yeah,
it also
so-
makes XP that proportional to your character's level. On the
Yeah.
whole system.
Yeah, but I like that they're not going to de-level you. You're just going to be at like the base of the level. You're not going to lose a level, but it's still one of those things where I think this is for Alpha 2. We're going to get a lot more testing in. We're going to see where it feels right and where it doesn't feel so right with XP debt and everything like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. I think it should not always be a thing. I think there should be instances where you don't get XP debt or
But
like
how-
any sort of negative thing.
strict- How severe do you think consequences should be if you die in the open world, like other than XP?
Yeah.
I
Like,
mean, I feel like you dropping stuff makes sense. That I'm fine
Yeah,
with.
how much
I
stuff?
get it. I feel like it again. Like, I feel like the way that they have it seems fair. Where if you're corrupted, you
Yeah.
drop like gear. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're dropping like resources. But I
Yeah.
can't say how much exactly until I can test it to see like what they're already thinking, and then figure out their baseline compared to my baseline. Like, does this feel like a lot? Or does this feel like a little bit?
Yeah, fair enough.
You know?
Do you feel like you should drop items? Let's say I'm corrupted and like I get killed by Tumok. Should I drop a piece of my gear even though I wasn't killed by a player?
Say again?
Do you think like let's say I'm a corrupted player, like I just got done killing Yami and that man's all the way at
Never gonna
Winston.
happen, buddy.
And I'm walking in like I'm walking the Riverlands and I'm corrupted still and I get killed by Tumok. Should I drop my piece of gear? Or should it only be if I get killed by a player?
Oh man, that's a great question.
I think you should drop a piece of gear. Stop being foolish. If you're corrupted, you better don't hang around too long.
I feel like it should be against players.
Really?
Yeah, I think the act of getting corrupted to a certain point should give you the chance to drop gear no matter what you're doing.
I agree.
Because
with
there
that,
are going to be
Okay.
there is going to be, it's a spectrum of corruption, right? Like you gain more and more and more the more bad stuff you do. If you just slay one person because they're being an absolute, you know, hobnob or whatever, like hanging around in your area and just absolutely taunting you, and you just completely demolish somebody and say, get the out of here. Just leave. Okay?
I think
then you
if we're
shouldn't
gonna
like,
have where, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, then you shouldn't like, drop a piece of gear for that. But if you end up slaying like 2 or 3 people and you're just running around trying to murder a hobo, like you're trying to gather carrots by killing the carrot gatherers, and then that, I think if you end up dying in any way, shape, or form, like at a certain point you should, because I know there's going to be at this point an unknown amount of chance, but Steven said that corrupted players will have a chance to drop gear if they die. But he hasn't really said anything about like
threshold makes sense.
yeah, like is it as soon as you become corrupted? Is it a 0.1% immediately, or is it you're you know one player death is nothing, 2 player deaths gives you like a 0.5%, but then once you hit like 5 or 6, then you're bordering on the 10% range.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I agree with the nuclear. Granted there should be a level at which you start dropping gear. I don't think just because you killed 1 or 2 people that you should start immediately dropping gear. I feel like there should be a threshold of which you've killed X amount of people. Initially it's just you're less effective in fights, and then eventually if you keep killing people, it's now you're dropping gear. But I think if you drop 1 piece of gear, that should raise the threshold for dropping another piece of gear.
Okay. All right.
Because like,
Ooh.
what if you die to Tumok, but you run back to your body and
Die again.
you die again? So now you've dropped 2 items, and say somebody's like looted you in that time, and they took whatever chest piece you have, but then like because you don't have a chest piece, somebody kills you, and now you drop another. I think that's too much.
But do you
shouldn't
not
just be-
feel like it's like a way? Let's say people are camping a dungeon and they're like, "All right, I'm gonna go corrupt because I don't want him here." So now he's corrupted. Maybe he's not gonna want to be there because he's like, "Oh, I have a real high chance of dying here because also my stats
Yeah.
are dampened, and I don't want to lose a piece of gear because who knows?
Right.
Maybe someone might come in here and take my gear. I probably should go work
Right.
this off real quick because I could lose my gear to this boss. This boss could kill me."
Yeah, I just my issue that I take with that is that I don't know if you should be able to lose corruption for dying to world events or
Oh,
world
definitely not.
creatures.
But you think it could be a vicious loop? Like you keep going back to get your stuff and you keep losing more stuff?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
I think that'd be
right?
funny.
I mean, it'd be a moment, but super irritating for the player, I bet. But I guess that's what it's supposed to be.
He irritated someone by killing someone. Going,
Yeah, that's fair, it's fair, it's fair, it's fair.
Like by the time they hit their 4th or 5th death, they won't be dropping gear anymore because it won't be corrupted.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, Froglips. Froglips says, what about the gray gankers, aka people who PK in low quality gear and then don't care about dropping the trash armor?
I mean,
But-
I'd be very surprised if they could kill me in low quality
Yeah.
gear.
If gear matters,
Yeah,
then
gear really matters.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
gear's supposed to be what, like 40% of your power?
Exactly.
So if you're wearing grays, you're probably gimped by about 20 to 30% of your power is just gone right there.
Yeah.
So you got to go with lower level people. So now you're getting more corruption per kill. So now you're going to be corrupted longer. You're going to lose
Yeah.
Harder to work
more
off.
experience when you die, et cetera, et cetera. So you're just, I hope you never want to level again.
Right.
And if you're
Right.
max level, it's going to take you a long time to get rid of that corruption because you're going to hit like a wet noodle.
Yeah.
Right. It's gonna
And then
be-
fall over really easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't bank after you're corrupted because you got to work it off. And basically, bounty hunters are after you. Now it's easy for bounty hunters to kill you because you got lowered stats and then you also got bad gear.
If you have gear anymore at that point from dropping it.
Just hunting a naked elf running through the Riverlands.
Oh my gosh. Just a red named elf just you're like, yeah. A little army of like not very good at PvP people just trying to chase after him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I like consequences. That's what I'm trying to get out of this.
Yeah.
If you
We
everything
live in a
has-
society. There are
We
rules.
live in a society.
right,
Well-
there are consequences.